everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tails Crafts. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have another 10 card 1 kit video featuring our new J'adore card kit. But before I get started, I want to announce the winners from the product showcase video. The two winners were Gina Johnson and Jetty Lewis. So congrats, ladies. If you can email me at info@scrappytailscrafts.com, you can go ahead and claim your $50 gift card. Thank you again to everyone who comments on those showcase videos. It really helps the algorithm and it shows the video to more people when I get a lot of comments and likes. I know that a lot of you guys like the wheel where I pick the winner from a spinning wheel, but because this video is already over 40 minutes long, I decided to just pick 2 random winners and insert their names at the beginning of this video. So we're going to jump right in to the 10 cards. I'm going to be using our new J'adore card kit. Included in the kit, you saw that there were 2 embellishments. There is a clay heart embellishment and then a mix of pink gems, pearls, and hearts in the other mix. You also get the J'adore 6x6 pattern paper pad. I went through the papers just there. You get the umbrella couple die set, and then you also get this 3-layering stencil set that creates a really cute Paris print with some Eiffel Towers and hearts. Here is the actual pattern from the paper pad that was created with those stencils. So you can create the exact same pattern over and over again with that set of stencils. And then you also get the Paris Besties 6x8 stamp set. Off camera, I went ahead and colored the images from the stamp and die cut them with the coordinating dies. That's pretty much the only product I use other than the card kit, just to save me some time. You can see I also die cut some plain white die cuts using the die set that I can layer behind my colored ones. I also made a set of sentiments from that stamp. I stamped some with black ink on white cardstock and some I white heat embossed on black cardstock, and the die set does include the coordinating dies for sentiments, so I did use those as well. Alright, so the die set included in this card kit is a cute little umbrella couple. 3 of my cards today are going to feature this couple. I'm just going to show you how I paper piece one of them. You can see I have already created one off camera, and I am just going to add 2 heavyweight white die cuts behind the craft die cut that I used for their skin. And then I paper pieced her dress pink and her suit, or his suit, black. And then I was kind of debating what umbrella I wanted to use. I will have another video coming soon, probably on Friday, for the inspiration hop, where I show how to create the rainbow umbrella and some more couples, because this set is really cute and can work with a lot of different occasions like anniversary and Valentine's Day. As you can see, I did do my stamping, die cutting, and paper piecing before I even started my 10 cards to try to save some time and have a pool of images to work with for all 10 cards. I also do a basic sketch when it comes to these videos so that I have a rough idea of what I want to use on each card. Sometimes I add more, sometimes less, but that gives me a good idea of how much I need, and that way I don't have to over color or over die cut. So I knew 3 out of my 10 cards would need a couple, so here I am creating 3 couples. I did use the umbrella on this couple here. I cut the base from cream cardstock, which is going to act as their skin, and then I paper pieced her dress and shoes with a hot pink cardstock. Her hair is a light yellow for blonde, and then his suit is like a navy blue color, and then I gave him brown shoes. Alright, so for card 1, I am taking one of the papers from the J'adore paper pad. This has a pretty script, and it says Bonjour, Merci, and Paris. And it's in these nice brown neutral colors. And I'm going to trim 2 of the pages down because I'm going to be creating a slimline. So they are 3x6 is the first one, and then the second one is an extra 2 inches. So it should be 3x8. And then there's going to be, or sorry, it's 3¼ by 8¼ So there's going to be a 1/4 inch border all around. Now I have to connect these 2 papers because it is only 6 inches wide. So you will see that there is a break where I attach the two pieces together. The text doesn't line up, but I knew that my stamped images were going to cover most of that section, so I didn't worry too much about it. My first card is going to be using this really cute J'adore sentiment stamp from the Paris Besties stamp set. And it's a really nice large image, and I thought it would be perfect on a slimline card. And one of the girls from the stamp is sitting, so you can have her sitting on the moped or on this sentiment here. I am going to add 2 white die cuts behind this just for extra dimension. And I also cut off the very top of the Eiffel Tower because it was a little bit taller than my card. And for the first card, I am going to show you how I layer up my die cuts with the solid white ones behind. But for the rest of the cards, I don't show that. But just know that pretty much every image I add to my cards is popped up with 2 white die cuts behind. Just because I do think that these cards are very simple, and having that little extra bit of dimension adds a lot of interest to these. So here's that girl. I have her sitting on the O and the R, and what's really cute is that her leg rests on the O, on the inside of the O. And then because this does have the Eiffel Tower on the A part of the J'adore, I thought it would be really cute to have her holding the French flag. So I'm going to add that to her hand as well. And then on the back, I'm cutting apart my solid white die cuts so that I wasn't adding too much dimension. I wanted this girl to be on the same level as the J'adore. So I am just adding those extra 2 white die cuts to the areas that are overhanging the sentiment. Then across the middle part of the Eiffel Tower, I'm going to add the smaller I J'adore You sentiment. And there is quite a few sentiments in the stamp that are really cute for Valentine's Day or even anniversary and friendship cards. There's a mix between both. So I like that this card kit isn't exclusive to Valentine's Day. You can create a lot of gal pal friendship themed cards as well. Again, I'm cutting apart the I J'adore You white die cuts so that I am just adding that dimension to the overhanging parts of that sentiment. I'm also going to add the pair of shoes from the stamp. The purse fits perfectly on the E of J'adore. And then I'll also add the tiny perfume bottle, the sunglasses, and then I think I also add the lipstick next to the J. I just love that you can completely deck this sentiment out in girly images. And in today's video, I create, I think, 4 slimline cards, which normally in my videos I make 1 or 2, but because the images from the stamp set are so large and that couple die cut is also large, it really lends itself to creating larger sized cards. So I also create an A7 one and then a couple A2, but as you can see, this J'adore would fit perfectly as the main focal point on an A2 card. It would completely cover the card nicely. I am going to fill in some of those empty spaces with the clay hearts that are included in the kit, and that's pretty much going to finish off my first card. I forgot to also mention that I did clear heat emboss all of my stamped images before coloring them, so they have a nice shine. So moving on to card 2, I am going to pull in a few extra supplies, just some basics that I think a lot of people have. I do know that cloud stencils can be easily made with a cloud die, and I've done that in the past. But this particular stencil I'm using is by Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to use it for several of my cards today. I do feel like when I add extra products, I want to make it worth the while, because I do know that the focus should be on the card kits. So you can see I did use the stencil and some blue ink to create a cloudy background. And then I also did pull in a grass die from my stash. This is actually the Scrappy Tails Slimline Grass border from the Everyday Border die set. And then below it I have a scrap of gray cardstock that's going to act as a road for this scene. I'm going to glue the grass and the, I guess, sidewalk or road to my ink blended cloud background. I did cut that out from a stitch rectangle die. And I'm going to pull that die back in so that I can have stitching on my grass and the pavement. And it just looks like a nice clean scene. Everything lines up nicely. You obviously don't have to use a stitch rectangle here. You can just freehand cut a rectangle with your trimmer or with scissors. But this just added a little touch of interest to my cards. So what's cool about the J'adore stamp that I just used for my first card is that you can cut apart the Eiffel Tower and use it on its own. So that's what I did there. That's going to go in the background behind the grass. And then in the forefront, I'm going to add the girl again. This time I'm going to have her sit on the moped. And again, I'm going to give her a little French flag to hold. I think that's really cute. And the entire J'adore collection that we just brought out has a general Paris theme to it. And I just love that Paris is a romantic city, so it works well for Valentine's Day, but it's also very girly, and it's like a fashion capital of the world. So it works also well with Galentine's Day. I just really enjoy the theme, and I had a lot of fun drawing and designing this collection. So again, I did off camera add some of the die cuts behind the moped and the girl. Here I'm just adding the flag, and then that's going to be popped up right on top of the road or the pavement. Then I'm going to add a tiny black mat behind this. You guys know, if you've been following me for a while, I love black mats, especially on colorful panels. Behind the black mat, I'm also going to add another scrap of white cardstock that I had just to add a little bit more dimension. And then that's going to go onto my A2 card. And the sentiment that I chose is a French saying that in translation means "I love your smile." So you can see that was written out in parentheses. So I love that there are a couple French sentiments in the stamp set. So that finishes off card 2. I did embellish it with the pink gem mix that's included in the card kit. And now we're going to work with the 3-layered stencil, and I'm going to create 2 backgrounds in one go because I knew I wanted to use this stencil for 2 of my cards. I first started by ink blending the first stencil with the Eiffel Towers with some pumice stone. I didn't like how light it was, so I flipped the paper over. I'm going to tape the stencil down this time so it doesn't move while I'm blending, and then I'm going to use black soot instead. I am using a lighter hand. I don't want it to be super dark, and I am using my blender brushes that I purchased from Amazon to do all the stenciling today. Right now I'm blending on a light blue piece of cardstock that's heavyweight, and then I'm also going to pull in a white Nina panel and do my second background. So the first one I'm doing is very similar to the pattern paper that's included in the paper pad. I am going to change 1 layer to it, and then this stencil that I'm blending is going to be more girly with some pinks. All right, so that's the first layer. Then you can line up the second one. This one has some heart outlines and the word Paris. Again, I do suggest using some Scotch tape to tape down your stencils so that it doesn't move around. You can very easily ruin your backgrounds with just one little movement, especially with these layering stencils. So I do think it's worth the extra time to tape them down. So for the white background, I'm going to use picked raspberry for this second layer. And you don't have to just use one color. You can just use pink on the Paris words and then a red on the hearts if you want. It's totally up to you. You can make it much more detailed than what I'm doing. But I kept mine super simple just because I knew that they were just going to be background papers. For the blue background, I'm using peacock feathers for this layer. And I do want to mention that this card kit is a really great value. I mean, card kits in general always are, but this one is a $70 value for $39.95. Usually our stencils are around $65. But in this one, you get the 3 layering stencil as opposed to 1, and the die set is also a little bit larger than what we normally put in. So if you're going to get a card kit, I would suggest this one because there's just a lot included. So I am now layering the 3rd stencil onto the white background. This time I'm going to use spun sugar, and this light pink ink is blended with the picked raspberry that I just used before, so it ends up looking like the same color I used for the 2nd stencil. It's a little bit lighter. I still think it looks fine, so I moved on, but maybe better wash your, or I guess scrub your ink off your blender brush before going in with another lighter color on top. The 3rd layer has the detail for the Paris words and the Eiffel Tower. So I went in with an ink dauber so that I can better control the areas that I add the black soot through. And that's just so that I don't mix that in with the pink hearts that I just blended. And that's just going to add a little more detail. Definitely don't have to do that. You can just stick with the one color like we did on the 2nd stencil. But I do think that Eiffel Tower detail is nice with that black soot. And because I'm using a finger dauber, more ink is transferring. So it is going to look darker even though I use black soot as the 1st layer of the stencil. So this blue background is what we're going to be using for card 3. So here are the 2 backgrounds completed. I think they turned out really cute. I did trim the blue one down to 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have some more stitch rectangles that I cut from heavyweight white cardstock. I stacked 2 of them on top of each other for dimension. And then again, I have the Eiffel Tower from the J'adore stamped image that I just cut down so that I just have the Eiffel Tower. I will add 1 white die cut behind my stamped one for extra dimension. Then I'll go ahead and at first I glue the white rectangle directly in the center of the pattern paper, but I thought it would be cuter with a red mat to match the red hearts. So I quickly peeled that off, created a mat, and then I'll go ahead and glue it to the center. All right, so the Eiffel Tower image is going to go to the left side, and then this white heat emboss sentiment that says Paris is always a good idea is going to go to the right side. And this sentiment has meaning to me because it's actually a quote from the movie Sabrina, which takes place in Paris. And that movie has Harrison Ford in it. It came out in the 90s, and it was the first movie that my parents saw together, and they decided to name me after that movie. So I thought that was kind of cute, and I plan on giving this Valentine card to my parents for Valentine's Day. So I did add the red clay hearts from that mix around the sentiment, and then I also added one to the middle of the Eiffel Tower. I matted the entire panel with red cardstock and added that to my A2 card base, and that is going to finish card 3. All right, so card 4 is another slimline card, and I'm going to use that couple that we paper pieced at the beginning of the video. I also have all of these matching rainbow umbrellas because when you create these umbrellas, you have to cut each panel from colored cardstock. So I had to cut these umbrellas out, I think 8 times. So I ended up with 8 of these, and they're leftovers from a previous video that I will post later on. And I thought that they would be really cute lined up on a slimline card with the couple over to the left. So you can see I went ahead and glued down my umbrellas. They do have one white die cut behind them just to raise them a bit. And then I had multiple sentiments that fit in the center of the umbrellas, and I couldn't decide what to use, so I went with all 3. They all coordinate really well. The one on the top says I j'adore you, the middle one says je t'aime, which is love you in French, and then the last one says you hold a special place in my heart. I am going to pop up the sentiments with 2 white die cuts and glue those in the center of the umbrellas. The one at the bottom slightly overhangs, so I am going to cut a piece of foam tape just to add to the right side so that it's nice and level with the umbrella. And I will have the video where I show how to create these umbrellas for Friday. And there's going to be an inspiration hop if you guys want to join us over on Instagram. I'm giving away more prizes. And you'll also see what the design team has come up with using this new collection. So I did add 2 heavyweight, or no, I already had 2 heavyweight die cuts behind this couple. I just added 1 more just because those umbrellas were already popped up with 1 die cut. I wanted to make sure that the couple stood out over the umbrellas. Now, all of that is completely unnecessary, but I personally really like the look, so that's what I do on all of my cards. In the center of the remaining umbrellas that don't have a sentiment, I did add a white heart, and I thought that was adorable. And then using the pink mix from the card kit, I'm just going to add some of those going in a diagonal from the left side of the couple to the top right of the card. And that is going to finish card 4, I believe. This one is actually my favorite. I think it turned out really cute. So for card 5, I'm going to create an A7 shaker card. I chose the blue cheetah print from the paper pad and cut it down to 4x6. And then from the middle of that, I'm going to die cut an oval. You can see I have some 4x6 card panels that I cut down from heavyweight white cardstock. These are going to be the walls of my shaker. And to ensure that my white card panels line up with this pattern paper panel, I am going to cut. It's hard to explain. You guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm using the previous panel to line up my next one. So here you can see I layered the die cut oval panel on top of the solid 4x6, added the oval inside it, added my tape, and ran it through. So I did that, I think, 5 times, and that's going to build, I would say, about 2 Scotch foam tape layers worth of cardstock. You can also die cut 2 panels at a time. It's going to completely cut through the first one and then leave an indentation on the second so that you can realign that oval and cut the last panel. So there's a couple ways to do it. For some reason, the very first white panel that I die cut with the oval, it did not line up with my pattern paper panel, so I'm going to have to trim the oval a bit, but the rest of them lined up just fine. So here's the first one. I'm not sure why you can see a part of the white showing, but you can easily avoid that. It's not the end of the world just by cutting the oval slightly larger. You did see there that I added acetate behind my cheetah print, and then now I'm going to stack up all of my white ovals. So here is my next panel. This one completely lined up just fine. I did not have to trim it. And in between each layer, I'm adding ATG tape. You can also add liquid glue. I just like that tape is instant, so you can just move on to the next and stack these up. I would say that 5 layers is a good amount for these clay hearts. They're a little bit thicker than traditional sequins. So if you're just using like confetti or sequins, you can probably get away with just 4 layers, but because these clay hearts are a little more dimensional, I went with 5. Behind the cheetah print, I'm going to use silver glitter cardstock, and I also wanted to add my couple inside. Now remember, we added 2 heavyweight white die cuts behind all of the couples. In this case, I do not want that extra dimension. I want this to lay as flat as possible, just because I want to make sure that those hearts are going to shake inside. So that was pretty easy. I just very carefully peeled off the white layers. You can see not all of it came off, but the majority of it did. So Then I glued the couple to the center of the silver glitter cardstock. I added my clay hearts and then just some random iridescent sequins from my stash. These are some iridescent hearts from our new silver tin of embellishments. You can just use whatever you have, or you can just use the clay hearts. I went ahead and closed that shaker with a bit of liquid glue and ATG tape. I did add the glue because glitter cardstock is a little more tricky to glue on top of. So before I started shaking this around, I did make sure that the glue was nicely dried, and then I added it to a red mat. I also decorated the outside of the shaker with the same sequins and clay hearts. And then I'm going to glue this mat onto my A7 card base, and that will pretty much complete my 5th card. I am going to add a sentiment. I again went with "You have a special place in my heart." Stacked that up twice with heavyweight white die cuts, and then added it to the bottom center of the card. And that finishes off card 5. So I actually did not use a lot of the pattern paper from this card kit because the stamp set really lends itself well to scene building. So my 6th card is going to be another scene, again with another slimline stitched rectangle, the same grass border that I used for, I think, my 2nd card. Again, I'm going to line up the grass with the stitch rectangle and then run that through again so that the stitching will be added to the sides and the bottom part of the grass. And then I will create some more clouds with the Simon Says Stamp Cloud stencil and whatever blue ink is left on my blender brush. So like I said, I didn't use a lot of the pattern paper for that reason, but I do want to say that those cheetah prints, and there's also like another designer print in that set, those would be perfect to use with our new A7 pop-up purse. And I plan on doing either a live or a video for YouTube showing pattern paper purses with those prints. I think they'd be super cute. All right, so I went ahead and glued down my grass. This is a kind of a similar scene that I created earlier with the girl on the moped. The stamp set also includes a cute chair and table set. There's also the lantern. And this is just going to create an adorable little outdoor scene. I did trim down the lantern to better fit this size rectangle. Here I am adding my stacked die cuts for extra dimension. And I often get questions on how long it takes me to film these videos, and it usually takes 2 full days. 1 whole day, or actually 2.5 days. It takes half a day to do all my prep work, which is the die cutting, stamping, embossing, and coloring. And then it takes a whole day to create the 10 cards, and then it takes about another whole day to edit and post the video. So I end up with about 9 hours, sometimes 10 hours worth of footage. All right, so I did mat that entire scene with black cardstock and then added that to my slimline card. And I don't think I add any embellishments to this one. I kept it very simple. And that will complete card 6. Now, card 7, we're going to pull in that second pattern paper we created with the stencil set. You can see I cut the panel down to 5 1/4. No, sorry, this is 5 by 5. And then from the center of that, I die cut a circle. Using the same circle I cut, plus a slightly larger one, I'm going to cut out a blue frame. I wanted to find a blue that matched the color of the jeans that she's wearing, and it was slightly off, so I'm going to recut another circle that's a little more teal, and I'll just go ahead and still use the blue one that I cut just as an extra dimensional layer behind this teal one. I also added a white frame below it. Then I did want to reuse the circle that I die cut from the pattern paper. I wanted to use as much of it as possible, but I wanted to tone it back so that you can see my stamped image better. So behind the window, I added some vellum. I'm just going to trim off most of that. Then I will realign my circle die cut with the panel. And now I'm just laying out my scene. I want to use the girl that's walking her poodle, and then I use the sentiment that says, "Have a fabulous birthday." I'm going to glue the poodle and the girl to the frame, the bottom part of the circle frame. And then to make sure that it is level with the frame, I'm going to, again, cut down my white die cuts so that everything lines up. All right, then I will add glue behind everything and attach that down. I did have to pull this back up, so I'm going to try to remove the glue that's on my vellum with my sleeve. And I think the vellum helps to tone down that background, but I love that you can still see through it. Again, I'll pop up my sentiment with 2 white die cuts and add that. And then I'm going to mat this with the same teal cardstock I used for the circle frame. I'm just going to first glue down my circle, lining it up behind the vellum and then pushing the center down. Only that circle has tape, so only that is going to adhere. I did have to move it slightly to the right, but that looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down my card panel. You can definitely pop this up. I think that would be cute too. And then this will go onto a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch square card. I am going to embellish this one with the pink gems that are included in the kit. All right, and that will finish off card 7. I will have a coordinating blog if you'd like to see more close-up pictures of these cards. So moving on to card 8, I'm taking another pattern from the paper pad. This is the same as the brown paper I used for my first card. This is just in a coral color. And I used 2 stitch rectangle dies to create a frame from that. And then I also did 2 of the same frames from heavyweight white cardstock. And once you create frames, you're left with the centerpiece rectangle. So that is what I'm using to blend my yellow clouds. Again, with the same stencil that I've been using for all of my cards so far. I am going to add another road using the same gray cardstock. I just added that to the bottom of the clouds. And then I will take my same stitch rectangle and run that through so that the stitching all lines up. All right, and then off camera I kind of already built my scene, so I know how this is going to look. I am going to add the 2 white frames behind my pattern paper one to make it more dimensional. All right, so I'll go ahead and first glue down the frame, I believe, onto my A2 card base, and then I'll pop the inside rectangle in right inside. I like that the frame is slightly more dimensional. I thought about using the pink moped. I went with the red one. And I'm going to add the lantern to the forefront, and then this girl with her moped is going to be in the background. I thought about using a heart for my Happy Galentine sentiment, but ended up just using the sentiment. I'll go ahead and glue my girl down. I did have to shift her over to the right a bit so that my sentiment fit better. I will add 2 heavyweight, or I guess 1 white die cut behind my Happy Galentine's Day. And my cat Charlie decided to join me. And then this card is just finished off with the red, white, and pink hearts from the clay heart mix. This one's really simple, but it's one of my favorites. I really like the yellow and red color combo. And that is going to finish off card 8. I think. This one might be card 8. It might be card 9. I'm not sure. So anyway, I am going to layer up some hearts. Again, I did pull in some basic shapes from my stash. I think a lot of people have hearts, but I did die cut a slightly larger heart twice from brown cardstock, stacked those up, and then in the middle, I added a slightly smaller heart die cut from the same brown pattern paper I used for my first card. And then my couple is going to go over to the right side. I have a smaller red heart that I stacked up with 2 white ones. And then my sentiment's just going to go on the top left part of the heart. So this one was probably the fastest. I did have to spend some time paper piecing that couple, but otherwise it was a very fast card. And I think those couples just take about 10 minutes to completely paper piece. I did mat this cream cardstock onto some black. I wanted to pull in the black from his suit and also from the sentiment that I'm adding. This one is a really cute romantic Valentine card, I feel. Also would be cute for anniversary cards. I am going to add a clay red heart to the center of their umbrella. And then I'll also add this to my A2 card base. I do all of my card bases beforehand as well, and that saves me a lot of time. So around the sentiment, I'm adding the light pink hearts, which perfectly match her dress. And then there's going to be that red heart just in the center of the umbrella. And that will finish off card 9. My final card is another slimline. It is a new day. You can see my sweater changed. And I really wanted to use the poodle from the stamp set again by herself. So I made the scene pretty much just for that little poodle. So very similar to my past cards, I'm going to use some gray cardstock to create a road. Instead of grass this time, I just used some stitched hillside dies. I cut a slimline hillside in half, and I was able to get 2 hills for a vertical slimline card. I am going to add some more dimension to these because the hills are stacked and they are the same color. I thought by adding a bit of green ink to the bottom of them, it will better separate the 2 hills. And again, I just used whatever green was on my blender brush. You guys probably can guess that I'm going to pull in that cloud stencil again. This time I'm blending pink clouds because I have a pink moped that I'm adding to this scene. And I did have very little leftovers. I just had a few sentiments and then a couple smaller images left over. And I do want to ask you guys if you'd prefer me leaving the coloring in these videos. It would add an extra 10 minutes or so. But I know that you guys sometimes enjoy seeing Copic coloring. I just figure I have a few videos where I show my Copic coloring, that it might be more beneficial to just show the card making process. But just let me know what you prefer. Alright, so the top hill I'm going to glue completely flat with just some art glitter glue. And then the bottom hill with the pavement I'm going to pop up with foam tape. Okay, and now I have my stamped images. I'm just going to lay out a little scene here. You can definitely tell that the girl sitting on the moped is probably my favorite image from the stamp set, other than the J'adore large Eiffel Tower image. I like that she works for a lot of scenes. I thought next to her I'm going to add the lantern. And you can see that her head and the top part of the lantern will overhang the flat hill in the back. So to keep everything level, I am going to add a bit of foam tape behind those areas. so that everything is nice and even. I have another Eiffel Tower here from the J'adore stamp, just cutting it down so that I just get the Eiffel Tower. And I had an extra one that I knew I wasn't going to use because this was my 10th card. So I decided to just cut it up and add it behind the other one for a little bit of dimension. And here's that little poodle. I just cut off the leash part so that I'm just left with the dog. I put her next to the Eiffel Tower. I think that's really cute. And then I have some more hearts that I die cut from a hot pink and light pink cardstock. I'll just add those to the top. And then I'll add 2 sentiments. I went with Happy Galentine's Day and Yatame, I think. Yes. I thought about adding the purse. It would have been perfect in that spot I just added it to, but I didn't think a random purse would make sense there. So I took it off, and then again I'm going to add a black mat behind this scene and then add this to my slimline card base. And my slimline bases are 8.5 by 3.5. I am going to add the pink gems from the kit just around my sentiments. And that will finish off all 10 cards I created using the new Scrappy Tails J'adore card kit. I will have all of the supplies that I used linked down below. And if you do purchase a card kit, just know that you are supporting my small business. I did draw and illustrate every single product from this kit, and I had a lot of fun designing it and also making these 10 cards. So here I'm just going to show you all of the cards that I made today. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And if you'd like to see any close-up pictures, definitely head over to my blog. I will have more information on the Instagram hop in my video description if you'd like to follow me on Instagram so that you can see more inspiration. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week, and I will be back real soon with a new pop-up video tutorial. Alright guys, I'll see you later. Bye.